9.9 Media and iGovernment, I welcome you all to the Electronics Manufacturing Conclave. So why are we here? I think there is little doubt that electronic devices and products now rule our lives. From the ubiquitous cell phones and TV sets to PCs and appliances. I think everything now has electronics inside it. And electronics not only makes modern medicine possible, but also our banking, our transportation, and infrastructure. You know, everybody who's traveled by a plane or a metro train knows how much electronics is there inside it. And without it, life would be quite hard and inconvenient. I think all of us can agree that without electronics, it's going to be tough. We could live, but it would be very tough. But I think the real question is, how much of this electronics is actually made in India? And I'm sure many of you would have noticed that the gadgets and appliances we use are often of foreign origin, and a few are assembled here. And this is the true of in the case of medical electronics, strategic electronics, professional electronics as well. So whichever area you look, it's not just our consumer electronics. This is the case. In fact, the surprising fact is that our import bill for electronics is so large and growing so fast that there is a fear that it may eclipse our oil imports. And so there's a very real fear. And so the reasonable question to ask is, why are we not manufacturing more in India? If there is so much demand and if there is so much need, why are we not making more here? And it is to examine the hurdles and the challenges facing the manufacturing industry that we are here at this conference. I hope that during the course of the day, you will have the opportunity to hear from our eminent speakers and will be able to discuss the actions that are needed to transform India into a manufacturing powerhouse. I would now like to invite on stage Mr. Ajay Shankar, Member Secretary, National Manufacturing Competitive Council. Mr. Ajay Shankar. Mr. V. Raja, President, TE Connectivity. And Mr. P.V. Rao, Consultant, Department of IT and Telecom, Government of Andhra Pradesh. May I request Mr. Shankar, Mr. Raja and Mr. Rao to please light the lamp and formally inaugurate this event. Thank you, sir. And we will now start with the plenary session. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here this morning. Our plenary session is, we'll look at electronics manufacturing in India, the current status and outlook. May I request Mr. Ajay Shankar to please deliver his plenary speech.
It's okay.
Please go ahead.
It sounds more informal. I will take off straight away from what was said in the opening remarks, and which is that electronics and IT hardware, use electronics to cover both, has become central to the entire spectrum of manufacturing. 20-30 years back, you had And this was a frontier area, computers and televisions and things like that. But what has happened in the last 20, 30 years is that this has become mainstream to all of manufacturing and will become more and more mainstream. So if you go to a auto major, and I remember visiting a design testing facility of a very leading European car company a few years back, and they said that the car had I don't know how many kilometers of cables, and all their design and R&D and engineering effort was how to make the car smarter in terms of sensors and electronics and electronic controls. And about 2 weeks back I was in Pune, and I couldn't believe it that a software company which had specialized in servicing the OEMs in the auto sector had now partnered with somebody into actually organizing a product which would retrofit existing cars to make them hybrid. And the only reason they felt they could do it and have this new venture was their strength in the So was that all the sensors, etc., which would allow them to be a global leader in entering the market with a product which would allow existing cars to get retrofitted to become hybrids for Indian conditions. Now, the reason I am giving these two examples is that manufacturing in this century will have this as a centrality. Now, you look at medical devices or research on the frontiers of what they call now not so much medicine as biotechnology or biomedicine. So much is about being able to find out what can be put in which part of the body, which can track certain parameters and trigger responses which would allow treatment. So if India is to be mainstream in manufacturing in this globalized world in this century, then it does not have an alternative but to succeed in this space. Now, if you look at where India is today and we look at where we were, then there was a similar event 6 months back with CII, and an industry captain, I won't take names, said that if you look at India in the late 80s, in the electronic and IT hardware, we were slightly more evolved relative to the rest of the world than we were in the auto sector. And then, of course, we've had these 20, 25 years. And the auto and auto components, we are globally competitive. Or about this is one sector we are as close to being globally competitive as we are. And this sector which we are discussing today, we have receded. So, if you look at a presentation of domestic value addition compared to the, in terms of the local market, the share of domestic value addition has been on a declining curve. And it continues to decline. My sense it is now 7-8%. From what used to be, I presume, 60-70% in the late 80s. So clearly, if we talk of India succeeding in electronic IT manufacturing hardware, then a very normal market player would say, I mean, what's the point? I mean, in a globalized world, there are efficient globalized supply chains, and the way the division of labor has happened in the international global supply chain, India is somewhere, the rest of the world is somewhere. So this is a pretty stable market equilibrium. Why this won't change? I mean, or why should it change? Or anyway, I mean, when it changes, we'll see. But as an investor, as a pure business person, let me accept the realities of the equilibrium that is there in the market and operate in that. So if for an individual player in the global supply chain, the logic of the way the market has evolved is very strong. But if one looks at India as a country, then clearly I don't think we have a choice of not trying to reverse the trend of the last 23 years and succeeding. Because unlike, again I'll take a few minutes of digression, till 2008 it was fashionable in the US and UK, US and UK more than Europe, to believe that we are entering into a post-industrial society where services can keep creating enough wealth, and manufacturing is old-fashioned, it is conventional, it is passé, so it can go to other countries and emerging economies, and they were quite comfortable with China becoming the factory of the world. Europe didn't quite subscribe to it, but post-2008 crisis, suddenly there is a new consensus, and in the American parlance it goes something like this, that Main Street must become central rather than Wall Street, and the world of financial capital and wealth creation through finance has to be a means to creation of real products and services and wealth. Otherwise you get a kind of bubble or a house of cards, or a pack of cards, house of cards which can come crashing down, which is what happened in 2009. So, in fact, President Obama in his election campaign kept referring to bringing manufacturing jobs back to the US. And there is a report to the president by his team of scientific advisors, which involved many hundreds of stakeholder meetings, after which they put together a package of proposals to how America should maintain its lead in advanced manufacturing and remain preeminent in the coming decades. So there is a change in conventional wisdom in the most advanced country in the world, which is the USA, and which believes that advanced manufacturing should come back to the USA or remain in the USA. The USA should maintain its preeminent leadership in advanced manufacturing. Now, if I come to our situation in India, post-reforms, the first 10 years saw increased competitiveness in the services and primarily in the IT service sector. But if I look at the period 2001 onwards, manufacturing in India, after a lot of painful adjustments, has been coming of age. And if you look at the last year before the global crisis of 2009, manufacturing growth rates had touched about 12%, and industrial growth rate and services growth rates were both around 10%. And following that, there was a consensus that we as a nation must have a national objective of being successful in manufacturing. And so we had, after a lot of stakeholder consultations, we have a national manufacturing policy which looks at having a growth rate of 12 to 14% in manufacturing over the next 10 years. Now, as of now, the numbers are not encouraging, but these are parts of normal business cycles in my view, and sooner you will start seeing a revival. The question is how strong the revival becomes and how robust it is. Now, when we focused on manufacturing, then all policymakers came to the conclusion that you cannot succeed in manufacturing without succeeding in electronics, and electronics is a space where there has been relative decline of manufacturing and value addition in India. So in real terms, of course, there will be growth because the economy is growing very fast and some firms will be doing well. But India is not really becoming part of the global supply chain. It is somewhat marginal and becoming marginal. So one major policy change was the renaming of the Department of IT into the Department of IT and Electronics, or so the word electronics, there used to be a department in the 90s, the word electronics disappeared. It has come back. But more than names, what has happened is that again through a lot of stakeholder consultation, package of policy measures have been put in place and announced over the last 6, 8, 12 months. So in fact, whenever privately people talk to me of policy paralysis, I said, please look at what has happened in this sector. For the first time since 91, government has been proactive, it has reached out to stakeholders, and on the basis of broad consensus, one after the other, different components or elements of this policy framework has been rolled out. Very, very briefly, it looks at the first element which got rolled out was the provision of, and which was put in the national manufacturing also, that government would use government procurement as a policy instrument for promoting domestic value addition in manufacturing. Now this is provided in the national manufacturing policy itself. And for some of us, the inspiration for this provision came from the US TARP, which was adopted by Congress after the financial crisis, and which provided a stimulus package for reviving the US economy. And one provision was that wherever US does not have treaty obligations, then that money will be spent to buy things made in America. So if a road was to be built, or a building was to be done and steel was required, then if US had a treaty obligation with some countries that government procurement would provide for free trade, then that country could provide the steel, but others couldn't. And that steel had to be made in America. So popularly it was called the Buy American phrase in the TARP. So that was the inspiration for thinking in some quarters of using government procurement as an instrument for leveraging the size of the government market to incentivize manufacturing in certain spaces where we need it to do. And India has no international treaty obligations about government procurement. So this was in the national manufacturing policy, and now it has come out in the electronics policy. Now again, the department is undergoing a series of stakeholder consultations as to where and what would be realistic, practical, what should be the percentages and the timelines for the rollout, because there is no point in saying we must have X, but the domestic market is incapable of providing that X. The other thing is that it doesn't affect the competitiveness of the whole industry structure, because government procurement in this space is a very modest share of the domestic market. So the competitive character of the domestic market, which is huge and growing and very large, will survive, while in parallel a very tiny segment of that, which is government procurement, will have domestic content requirement. And the idea is that if that domestic content requirement is well met, the firms who enter there or enter the supply chain should become competitive enough soon, in a soon enough period of time to be competitive for the global supply chain. The next element has been support and subsidies for creating of manufacturing clusters or parks. Because clearly the history of industrialization shows that there are agglomeration benefits, there are externalities which come together if people in related activities are physically close to each other. It has happened in all the manufacturing segments across the world. I mean, the whole Detroit area emerged for the auto sector. So the idea is that we create these clusters or parks and the ecosystem and the common facilities which would allow globally competitive manufacturing to take place. Now this can happen only in partnership with the states, and this is an example again where there has been very close coordination and partnership between the central government agencies and the state governments, and the state governments are seeing the value of this and taking their state forward, and so therefore there is a lot of enthusiastic response and putting together land at prime locations with good infrastructure, etc., for this manufacturing to take place. The next component is some conventional incentives in terms of capital support, subsidies and grants for actual investments in manufacturing. So you have the creation of a bit of a protected market, then the facilities where you can do manufacturing, then a little financial support for those who get into manufacturing. Then what is even more radical is being planned, and that is the creation of equity funds for new startups. Now this is something completely new. We have not attempted the creation of equity funds for new startups in manufacturing, and this segment will be the first where this would start getting rolled out hopefully soon enough. Then you have the other pillar, and which is dovetailing of efforts within government and the private sector and the skill mission to see that the supply of trained manpower is in excess of the likely demand. Because this segment is no longer what it used to be earlier, so you need a certain level of professional skills if you are to be competitive in manufacturing, and therefore the attempt would be to work in partnership with the states and industry to see that enough skill development happens in and around the clusters where we expect manufacturing to succeed. And finally, there is a huge effort to see that we get fab facilities in the country and chip manufacturing in India, because that I am told is the key trigger for the emergence of the whole supply chain. Now, all this would work very well if you also have a fiscal regime which doesn't put you to a competitive disadvantage. Now, this is again an area where I think industry players, stakeholders need to generate a consensus, need to engage with government and try to see that we get a taxation and a fiscal policy framework which is as supportive for value addition and manufacturing in the country as it can be. And we can also try and engage with government and see as to what is it that we can achieve even in anticipation of the rollout of GST, assuming that GST is a couple of years down the road. So we look at it very carefully and see that what is it that GST will give us? Do we want anything GST plus? If so, what is that? How do we get it? And how do we get what we will get through GST a little ahead of GST? But in all this, real success would come if government and industry, players in manufacturing can work in a truly creative, constructive partnership for achieving what I said right at the beginning is a very difficult and ambitious goal of reversing a trend of 20 years and then becoming a major global player in the supply chain for electronics over the next 10 years. So I do hope that in the deliberations over the day, lots of the issues would get thrashed out, debated. And one other thing I'd like to add is that, which is very popular when I was a young officer, senior colleagues would tell me, that the devil lies in the detail. So there are any number of first-rate initiatives where some minor weaknesses in detailing have led to the desired outcomes not coming. So this new initiative in the last year or so, with all the stakeholder consultation, I am quite confident that we'll get the details right also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shankar. I think you have sort of succinctly summed up, what's the new policy, which is that, procurement by the government, the creation of infrastructure, there's a capital subsidy and financing, equity funding, manpower training, the need for us to have some kind of fab or semiconductor manufacturing facilities to sort of catalyze the growth, and finally and most importantly have a beneficial fiscal regime. So would that sum up what you said in terms of, so I would like to invite Mr. V. Raja, President of T Connectivity. They are one of the leading manufacturers and suppliers of connectivity equipment, to speak from the industry side. How are you perceiving the current outlook and the future for manufacturing in India?
Morning. Mr. Ajay, Shankar, Mr. Rao, Mr. Giridhar, friends, it's really a privilege to be here to represent the industry and speak in terms of what is it that we need to look at to drive the accelerated manufacturing from an electronic industry perspective. What I thought I'll do is break it up into probably about 4 components. I don't have any presentations. The first component, let me share my perspective. I've been in industry for about 35 years, largely in manufacturing. In electronics, right now I work for TE, which is primarily in virtually anything that you see electronics, we are there. It's like Intel inside, we are inside in every electronic component making connectors. The second thing, I've been in medical electronics for several years. So I have a fair bit of understanding of the landscape of the electronic industry, the needs of the industry, the challenges, and what we need to do if we have to really harness the potential that we believe is there in this country. So 4 parts I want to talk about. One, why manufacturing? Everybody talks about manufacturing in India. So I will touch upon that quickly. The second thing is, what's government doing in our perspective? The third piece is, what are some of the challenges and impediments that we see? And a corollary to that, what do we really need to translate an opportunity into a reality or harness the potential that we believe exists in this country? So first and foremost, manufacturing. I don't think it's in a rocket science as to why we need to pursue aggressive manufacturing in this country. Number one, if you look at, we talk about demographic dividend. This country is going to see 100 million plus people coming into the workforce. We take pride in seeing we are a young country, and we are about, half the population is less than 15 years plus. Next 10 years, all of them will be looking for jobs. So if you don't have a robust manufacturing industry, service industry alone cannot provide jobs to those people. And the consequence of a lack of a proper employment opportunity can create massive social unrest. So I think that's the fundamental that we got to understand in this country. It's an imperative, there's no debate on that. Second piece, our GDP is 60% plus on service. It's not sustainable. The reason I say is that if you look at our revenues, service indirect tax is a very small component of the overall tax revenues that this country makes. Progressively, it will have to be more in the form of direct taxes, indirect taxes, whether it's excise duty, customs duty, which all come in the form of manufacturing that will help us to address our fiscal deficit, grow our revenue basket, become self-reliant. I think that's the second piece that we need to understand. Third, I think Mr. Ajay Shankar alluded to that, 400 billion plus electronic industry if it is going to be in the next 10 plus years. But no stretch of imagination can this country afford to import that, because the rupee may hit triple digit, if not more. I think that's the kind of a risk that we run. And the last but not the least, manufacturing per se is imperative in a country like ours, which is a consumption-driven economy. So when you consume so much, why would you import? Why would you not control your own destiny and manufacture in this country, which is known for its ingenuity and innovation in creating products and solutions aligned to the cost structure that we can afford and drive that? Therefore, I think it's imperative manufacturing in this country has to take a quantum leap from around 12% to probably 20–25%, which is also the slated goal of the government. Let's shift gears and understand what's the government doing about it. I think Mr. Ajay Shankar again alluded to a lot of good steps that the government is doing, and I want to acknowledge that. The national manufacturing policy, we don't have anywhere else in the world. I think that's something, a great step, which I think clearly lays down the emphasis of the government in promoting manufacturing in this country. Great first step. Second, I think if you look at some of the procurement in the government sphere, where they are giving a preference up to about 30% for local people to supply, I think that's again a very good step. This is something in many forums in the past, in my capacity as an industry leader, I have articulated and said, encourage local industries. Look, I work for a multinational company. Having said that, I still believe that the multinational companies will also invest heavily in manufacturing when there is an incentive for you, or at least you get a preferential treatment, all things found equal, in buying in the local industry. Unfortunately, in India, all of us have this philosophy, we say we are Indians, but we like to buy imported stuff. Right from the cars onwards to the cell phones, we have a general tendency to look outward because we don't seem to eat the food that we cook at our home. So I think that's the second thing that we need to do And I think government is working on that, which I think is a good stuff. The third piece is there is a slew of incentives that are being given by different state governments in different forms in order to promote the kind of the forums that they are creating for manufacturing to come to the various state governments. It also, I think, drives home the point of the seriousness of the government. So I think there are some great steps, and I really welcome them. If you then look at what are some of our challenges and what are some of the areas which I think perhaps stand in the way of translating a 12% of contribution to GDP becoming, let's say, a 20-25%, I'll touch upon a few of them. Number one, and I think this goes without saying, is infrastructure. I think if you look around the infrastructure, right from the time that you envisage to start a facility to the time you actually can start, the number of layers of approvals that you go through, the land acquisitions that you go through, all these in many ways becomes a challenge. I know I'm talking too general, but given the time constraints, I want to specify that this is something, everybody talks about a single window clearances. We've just put up a factory in Karnataka. Trust me, it's been very, very good experience, and we are building this facility for over $50 million plus. It's been a good experience, and I'm not finding fault with the government. They've been extraordinarily helpful. Having said that, it can certainly be much better in terms of the speed at which you can go and get the approvals. So I think that's clearly one area where we struggle. Let's talk about power. I think a lot of areas we need power, continuous power. There are state governments today as we speak, 16 hours you don't have power in industry. And let's not mention names out here. How do you run a situation where your power cost, diesel generator, almost twice the grid cost? And in electronics, you need consistency of power and quality of power. So if there is wide oscillation in the voltage, you go for a toss. The cost of remaking is huge, humongous. Therefore, I think those are simple stuff, but extraordinarily essential if I have said we want to really harness this potential and make it a reality. Infrastructure is clearly one. I won't touch about roads, ports, but there are challenges. The good thing again is if you go to air customs, this is a place, as I said, I worked 30 years plus, some of you perhaps have. We can clear in air customs in one day even today. There are some places you can actually do it. You go to port, maybe you can do it in 2 or 3 days. In some cases, it takes 10 days, 15 days too. So I think there is scope for improvement. I'm not saying it's all bad, but I'm saying that's an area we got to progressively work because that's critical in order for us to accelerate this. Second piece, if you really look at it, is tariff structure. And again, I think Mr. Ajay Shankar talked about it. My point is that for those who are making in India, I'm not asking for any concessions. But if you really look into the taxation regime, in some cases, it makes sense to import rather than to make it in India. Trust me, and I can give examples to that in various industries. Even in my own industry, it happens. I'm not asking for increase in import duty. I'm asking for a level playing field where the tariff today can be such that you can actually make it in this country and still be at least the same cost competitive as when you import. Now, hopefully the GST regime, which we do believe in 2013 or 14 will get ushered in, will help us in that direction. But in the meanwhile, we do have these challenges, and it will be worthwhile to look at that and see how we can make it enabling. Now, if you look at today, in the absence of manufacturing, government doesn't lose any revenue. So even if you have a tariff which is lower and you encourage manufacturing, there are plethora of benefits that will come in the form of additional excise duty, in the form of ancillary duties, ancillary industries coming up, consumption going up. That in itself will more than offset for what we perhaps believe there could be a revenue loss, when in reality there's actually no revenue. I think that's the second piece that we really need to understand. The third piece, which is again important, is the labor loss in this country. I think many of you who are in industries like me do understand. I'm not asking for a hire and fire regime, no. But I think we got to understand water finds its own level. Markets determine from where they will source. Price is not something that you control. Customers are not given. So if you want to look at the global world or even the local world, you got to be price competitive. You got to consistently drive productivity. In a country where inflation runs at 7%, wage increases run 11, 12%, we don't generate that kind of productivity. And in the electronic industry, which is a skimming pricing module, where prices continue to go down, go back and see what's the price of a LCD TV that you bought 3 years back and what you buy today. And you can understand what I'm relating to. You got to have productivity driving those cost structures down. And you can do that provided you have the flexibility to have fair labor practices, but at the same time adjust labor to align to what the demand is and what the cost structures are. People like you and me don't have any guarantees of employment, right? If the market doesn't dare, you don't perform. Every day you open a newspaper, I find a friend of mine in my similar capacity in another company, last year numbers went down, he's history. That's what happens in reality today. But on the contrary, if you take today, if you have to restructure, I was trying to run a restructuring proposal, the amount of explanation that I have to give to the global guys to say why it is expensive in India, because it's purely voluntary that you have to do in India. You cannot go and reduce manpower the way you want to, irrespective of the demand situation. So that is a challenge that we need to understand. We need to be fair to the labor. We need to ensure that we don't differentiate contract, non-contract laborers and pay different kind of salary. All this arises because in the absence of a fair and equitable labor policy, which helps industry to have the flexibility of the cane and the rigidity of the oak, depending on the situation that you are in. I think that's the other piece that we really need to understand. So I would basically say these are three of things that we really need to focus on if we really want the manufacturing industry to grow in this country. And I do believe it can, and we have a large domestic market. We can grow it. We can be competitive. I do not want to become a factory which has become an outsourcing factory for the Western world. I would like to produce products that can be sold in this market at a quality that your customers define, at a cost that the customers can afford, and still make a healthy profit. If I do that, I don't have to go and sell my wares in the Western world and push it. There will be a pull factor that will happen. Classic example is the auto component industry. Consistently worldwide, they are recognized as one of the best performing industry. And if you look at the consistent awards that they have got, both in terms of quality, delivery, and everything, so we can do it. We've done it. There's no reason we can't repeat that success elsewhere. So I urge upon, as Mr. Ajay Shankar said, as we delve into the details, and the devil lies in the details, absolutely right, we must look at some of these things. I know it may not be one window where we can get close to all this, but I think in my earnest, sincere belief, as someone whose entire life been in this country and believe I want to work only in this country, I genuinely believe this country can become a huge manufacturing base, given our technology, given our engineering brain, given our intelligence, and the vast market that we have. The only thing is we got to address some of these things, and we cannot procrastinate. The longer we do, the lesser we will have the chance, and the market will continue to remain small, and people will tell you, why don't we just import and sell? That's what continues to happen today. So in my own industry, we do about 30% local. I want to change gears in the next 5 years to make it 70% local, 30% import. You may still ask, why not 100%? I want to be realistic. There are certain markets, there are certain products. It may not make economic sense. I don't want to localize for the sake of localization. Localization has to be with a clear understanding. It serves the customer needs, and it also makes business economic sense for me today. So that's the reason in 5 years our goal is to change from 30-70 to 70-30, and I genuinely believe we can do that. And so I think together we will work with the government, and I'm sure most of you will do, and I genuinely believe this vision of the government can actually translate into reality, and we can be proud of creating what we did, whether in the IT industry or in the service industry, we can do in the manufacturing industry. We can control our destiny. It is all in our hands. I just wanted to say that much. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Raja. That was a very eloquent talk on what we can do, and it's very encouraging to note that the industry is really looking forward to the new policy, and that you are very optimistic about this. Then you're hoping that the problems get fixed so that the industry can reach its potential. Thank you so much. I would now like to invite Mr. P.V. Rao, who is a consultant for the Department of IT and Telecom with the government of Andhra Pradesh, to please give his talk.
Good morning, all. I would like to limit myself to what Andhra Pradesh is doing to facilitate the electronic manufacturing. First thing is proactive. Now the government there in Andhra Pradesh has become very proactive in encouraging this electronic manufacturing, and they have come out with a electronic hardware manufacturing policy, and in tune with the national electronic policy and the electronic manufacturing clusters also. We are coming up with 3 manufacturing clusters in Andhra Pradesh. So I would like to just tell about the work that Andhra Pradesh is doing. Yeah, this is already Mr. Ajay, Shankar and Mr. Raja have already spoke about this, what's happening in the globally and India. The DT, the Department of Electronics and Information Technology, Ministry of Information Technology, Government of India, they have come out with the electronic manufacturing cluster policy, where they are encouraging every state to come up with the electronic clusters. So in keeping that in view, they are giving certain incentives to build all these infrastructure like basic development, essential services, welfare services, support services, manufacturing support, and other things to build this infrastructure. Government, the central government is giving up to 50% grant in aid, which we are trying to avail and start 3 clusters in Andhra Pradesh. As I mentioned, we have come out with the electronic hardware policy in the month of July, last July, and issued guidelines for that. And also we are coming up with 3 clusters, 2 in Hyderabad, in HADA area, that is Hyderabad Airport Development Authority area, close to the new international airport that we have in Shamshabad, and 1 at Visakhapatnam. That is 2 clusters in Hyderabad. 1 is of 600 acres and other one is of 300 acres, and 1 in Visakhapatnam is of 100 acres. So 3 clusters we are planning to come up with. And already we have submitted DPR, 2 DPRs to the deity here in central government. As of now, the contribution of electronic production is only 7.5%, which we would like to double in the next few years, 5-10 year time frame. We would like to have double that AP share. And this is the place, Hyderabad, where we are coming up with 2 clusters, as I mentioned, and both the clusters are in the HADA area, that is Hyderabad Airport Development Authority area, and one 600-acre cluster is in Hyderabad. We are coming up with a 165-kilometer outer ring road, 8-lane outer ring road. Almost 80% of the outer ring road is now operational, and only 20% is now left. Hopefully in the next 2 years or so, the entire 165 kilometers should be complete and should become operational. And abutting this outer ring road close to the airport, we have a 600-acre cluster, which we call it as Fab City area. That is a 1250-acre Fab City area. There we have taken, we have earmarked 600 acres for electronic city or e-city, and trying to create a. And third cluster that we are planning to bring is in Visakhapatnam, about 100-acre cluster there. Yeah, these are the 3 clusters which I have been mentioning about. That is e-city. One is in Maheshwaram, that is south of airport, about 6-7 kilometers outside the outer ring road, the Maheshwaram one, and third one is Parvada, which is about 15 kilometers from the Visakhapatnam city. And this we are working with APIIC, that Andhra Pradesh Industrial Infrastructure Corporation, which is a nodal agency to create the infrastructure in for industrial estates and all there in Andhra Pradesh, and software technology parks of India. This is the map of the what you see is that outer ring road, part of the outer ring road, and the e-city cluster what I have been talking about is just abutting the outer ring road, as you can see that. Yeah, this is again the map, and the map what you see on the top right is the HADA area, that is Hyderabad Airport Development Authority area. The red thing is the international airport, and you have this is 165-kilometer outer ring road, the red one, and we also have a inner ring road which is about 50-60 kilometer. And this 600 acres we have. One is SEZ area and one is non-SEZ area. Non-SEZ area is about 330 acres, and SEZ is about 260 acres. So here we have, and for this SEZ area, non-SEZ area, already we are working with ILIA, that is Electronic Industries Association of Andhra Pradesh, and we have a commitment from about 63 units to start or relocate their manufacturing into this new cluster. And for SEZ also we have a few commitments. And we are trying to create a world-class testing facility there, and we have been talking to STQC and taking their help in establishing a world-class test facility there in this cluster. Basically, here we want to we have concentrated telecom industry and electronic design, system design. For these two things we are want to focus on, but we are not tied only to that. We are open if we have some people showing interest in other areas, we are open to that also. the kind of test facilities that we want to bring up there, we are want to create this with the help of STQC. This is a layout of the ECT. And these are the estimates of the entire cluster. Basic development and essentials are going to cost something like 300 crore, and manufacturing support 80 crore, and totally 580 crore project which this is going to be, and out of which 260 crores we are seeking the central government as a grant in aid, and remaining the balance is going to be from the state government and partly from the industry, which has already given us the commitment letters, that is ILIAP, members of the ILIAP. And the next one I was mentioning was Maheshwaram. Maheshwaram is south of the airport, about 10 kilometers south of the airport, and it's also south of the outer ring road. Yeah, this is, as you can see, it is little away from the outer ring road. The one was just abutting the outer ring road. But this also falls in this Hada area. And this site is in between two highways. One is Bangalore Highway and other one is Srishala Highway. It is in between these two. And the road what you see which is going vertically up is a radial road. You have about 30-40 radial roads coming up which connects the outer ring road and inner ring roads in the city. And the areas which the Maheshwaram cluster is going to target on are the ones we have mentioned here, telecom and component for component industry also. We want to focus on this 300-acre cluster. And the type of test facilities that we want to create there. And this is the layout of the that 300-acre cluster. And the project cost, this is a 360 crore which we want to invest on creating all the facilities there. And we are seeking about 155 crore from the as a grant in aid from the central government. And balance is going to be from the state government. And we are also talking to LCNA, and hopefully LCNA, some of the LCNA members are likely to visit us in the first week of February and see this, I mean, what we are trying to do, and going to meet our officials there, and we are just hoping that they will show and come and show some interest in what we are in the Maheshwaram cluster. As far as the earlier one is concerned, already it's almost 80% or 90% is already committed by the local industry. And the third one is this Parvada area in Visakhapatnam. This is about 15 kilometers from Visakhapatnam. This earlier two clusters we have already submitted our DBRs, but this we are yet to start working on this. Hopefully this also we will be completing in a couple of months' time. And this is also a third cluster which we want to do. And there relatively this is going to be a smaller one, only 100-acre thing. And we want to focus here on consumer electronics and strategic electronics. the equipment that test facilities that we would like to have are these. And the layout of the 100-acre cluster there in Visakhapatnam. And the total project cost is 145 crore, and the grant here what we seeking is 50 crore from the central government and balance from the state government. And the chief promoter for all these three clusters, it's going to be the ABIC, that is Andhra Pradesh Industrial Infrastructure Corporation, which is a nodal agency of government of Andhra Pradesh to create the industrial infrastructure. Then we are going to form for each of these three clusters SPVs, and the industry is going to be the part of the SPV in for all the three clusters, apart from the other stakeholders. And we are also trying to have a partner with academic institutions like Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University there in Hyderabad, and Osmania University, Andhra University, to have industry academic and R&D linkages. And the timelines for completion of this is about 1.5 years to 2 year time frame. The first phase, which we would like to complete all these clusters, and only the Fab City or E-City cluster is going to have a second phase, but all remaining two we want to do it in single phase. Yeah, thank you. And apart from this, we have also, I've mentioning about the electronic hardware manufacturing policy. There we have made a lot of incentives for the industry. One is in terms of taxes, then rebate on par up to the something like 30 lakh for the first 5 years. You get a subsidy on par, and that will help mostly the SME, small units. Say 30 lakhs is a small amount for a big industry, but particularly to help the small SMEs, which may complement the big units which are coming there. We have come out with this policy. Then the stamp duty 100%. It is you get the reimbursement on the stamp duty. Then they are exempt from statutory power cut, as Mr. Raja was just mentioning, that reliable and 24/7 power is required. So we do have power problem there in Andhra Pradesh. So now we want to already the government has come out with a GO, and it's now electronic manufacturing industry is exempt from the power cuts, statutory power cuts. And most of the incentives that we were giving to the IT industries 20 years back, Hyderabad was not known for IT, but today Hyderabad is one of the important destinations in the country. Not only in the country, even the world now recognizes Hyderabad as a destination. So we want to repeat the same thing for the manufacturing in the next 10 to 20 year time frame. And most of the incentives that we have, which IT was already getting, so that now are going to be applicable even for the electronic manufacturing industry. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's all.
So thank you, Mr. Rao, for explaining the 3 projects that Andhra Pradesh government has started to encourage manufacturing of electronics in the state. And it sort of ties in with what Mr. Shankar was saying, that some of this infrastructure is created in partnership with the states. And I think perhaps Mr. Raja will be a bit encouraged that somebody is starting to do something about this. So, with that, I'd like to, since all the three panelists have finished giving their talks and making presentations, I'd like to invite any questions from the audience, or if you have a point of view that you would like to express. I think there's a gentleman here in the front. Maybe please get your microphone, and if you could just introduce yourself. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kishore Narang. I'm just a design engineer and practicing design for the last 35 years. As Mr. Ajay Shankar mentioned, I also belong from the early 80s. I've been into design and designing since 81. I've been at my own running a small design house. And I've been through that stage when electronics used to be, we used to be really competitive and ahead of the rest of the world in electronics hardware manufacturing. But I'm really anguished, one of the most anguished person, which one fine day we woke up and we saw DOE has become DIT. And even now, of late, we have become, we have just started calling it DIT, but why the name is not coming to the ministry level? Why have we not renominated the ministry also as Ministry of Electronics, Communication and IT? They're part of subsets of electronics. That is one of the very on the side point. The second thing is, I think one thing is which is very conspicuously absent during the deliberation is the why we lost this flow of electronics or any other manufacturing capability. It was simply because of these software services. We let our engineers divert into the soft services, and they have been doing all the soft skill jobs, which even non-engineering graduates could very well do it. And this is where, and our education system also has really contributed seriously into this decline. And now when we talk about manufacturing competitiveness or even National Skill Development Council, I think our focus should not only be on the lower level of the labor and the skill technicians. I think what we need is to rehaul our education system and somehow bring in a right kind of a bridging between the education system and the industry. Government has always been talking, policies have been always there, but there's a major disconnect between educational institutions, academia, and industry. And everybody blames industry, that industry does not want to collaborate or does not want to contribute. Industry has always been very active, but the major disconnect has been coming from academia, because there have been only two categories of institutions, because I've been training design engineers for the last more than 20 odd years and sending them. Either we have elite or we have trash. Elite are in their own snobbish frame of mind, and I think the graduates of those institutions, also IITs, they are going more into IM. Why are they going to IM? Why don't they follow research? We have stopped getting any patent from India. Because our IITians, after IIT, they straight away they go for IMMs. It's very amazing, and we have let these kind of things at a societal level grow. Second thing is other institutions, the trash which has come up. They don't care. For them, they are teaching shop. For them, they are selling degrees and charging money. They have no quality of education, and education is not a respected profession anymore. The rejects from the industry, they go to teaching. People who don't get a job in the industry, they join back the same institution which they barely passed out from. And if this is the quality of faculty we have in the engineering colleges, what kind of engineers do we expect? And major disconnect is in making them employable, usable by the industry. We do have some practice school and internship programs, but they are not enough. They are more of a sham by the degree. I would seriously recommend that under this National Skill of Development, whatever body we have, we bring back the engineering from 4 years to 5 years, and 1 year, a compulsory internship in the industry, not governed by the institution from where they are graduating, but by some nodal agency which actually audits, monitors the skill set, development of them, and making them really employable and worthy of contribution to the industry.
Thank you, sir. So, Mr. Shankar, if quick comment from your side on this observation.
Valuable suggestions noted.
Thank you, sir. So I think Mr. Shankar will make sure it reaches the right ears. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ajay. I come from textile industry. But when we talk of electronics, we basically talk of technology. And when we talk of technology, it is coming in at a faster pace into the world from around Europe and America. Are we serious about investing heavily into research in our country? Unless we do that, we will never be internationally competitive. And I do not hear any talks in this discussion about investing in research. Are we serious about it? Otherwise, our whole set of efforts will go futile. Thank you.
I think we are research, and I must say I forgot to mention about the funding for focused R&D in the sector, which is also in the pipeline.
Yeah, I want to add from an industry perspective, I think every industry does put in a substantial amount. For instance, in our company, we do 5% of our revenues we invest in research. As we speak, we have more than 500 plus engineers working on products, not for the global, more in terms of what we can do in the local market. And I've been in industries where I've seen almost a third of the global engineering force working in India, both for India and local market. It is happening, and I think it's also, you made a very valid point. You know, for paucity of time, I didn't go into great detail. It's not just about manufacturing at a low cost that will get you where you want to. You got to be innovative in terms of what you design and sell. And I think that's the key to success. Because quality as well as cost accompanied by innovation embedded in it is what will make you differentiate. If you want to overtake a country like China for that matter, that's where the differentiation will come. If you keep fighting on the cost and quality, you will get somewhere closer by, but I don't think you will get long-term successful. So I think it goes without saying, and our engineering talent, I do believe 90-20, what you said is right. But even that 10% is a potent force. So I think if we can encourage that, and both the suggestions are valid, if from the education curriculum onwards to investments in research, if it is promoted, if it is incentivized, we would see probably more and more competitiveness coming through that. So I think very valid points what both of you said.
Hi, my name is Ajay. I come from a telecom background. I was into manufacturing in the beginning, and then later on now I'm in a management cadre. But anyway, I come from a long manufacturing background of telecom. See, we have seen the C-dot and C-dot technologies grow long actually for almost like a decade actually, and after that it maybe eroded actually. So it was not there, the technology was not there, the manufacturing was not happening at all. And we didn't see what happened and how it has again grown very fast and how it is declined. And now again we are talking about the same technology, about C-dot into the government requirements, right? The technology driven by the C-dot manufacturing again, and then doing the products in the communication sector, and it may take off now. And we don't know that what was the problem or what was the failures which happened in the past. We are not going back into those, and then we are now encouraging the same thing in industry, and I think it may end up in the same scenario further also. So we are not got much introspect into that, and then we are promoting the same thing again back now.
So your question is, are we learning from the lessons of the past? Is that your question?
Yes, that's what. And earlier actually, as I know, the technology was actually, it was the same technology given to almost 20 manufacturers, and 20 manufacturers print the same product and sell it to government industry, which is again DOT, and government buys, or they're bound to buy. Now, the same thing again will happen. Same technology will go to 10 industries, and there's no competition. The same thing they print, and then they give it back to, again, government agencies. So and we don't know, what will happen to the next.
Mr. Shankar, his question is that, once you do this kind of government procurement and some kind of reservation, will it lead to lowest common denominator?
No. This is where government and industry need to work in more creative partnership this time to see that we become globally competitive. And we have to keep what Mr. Raja said, that we will succeed if we are at the frontiers in ingenuity, innovation, and global competitiveness. We should not look at just a low wage advantage. We should look at advantage in creating smarter and smarter products.
I want to add one more thing. When it comes to government procurement, I think this may be worth looking at. Traditionally, we look at specifications. Once the specs are frozen, it's L1, the lowest price. Now, it's good because government has to get the lowest cost, but you look at some parts of the world, there is a metrics or a weightage for the quality of the technology embedded in it. That is also factored in the final procurement. Here you become L1 based on the specs, and if somebody is smart enough and gets a low-cost specs embedded in it, then you fight and continue to remain in that technology. I think it may be worthwhile for us, to see whether we can put in a factor for the quality aspects of the technology piece as it happens in many parts of the world. That will in many ways enable coming in of technology which is relevant, contemporary and long lasting, and at the same time you continue to get prices. The last point, I think we talked a lot about in terms of the innovativeness or research and development. The point I want to make, the 10% or 5% of the engineering brain that we have who designs, develops products, most of them are doing for the global company. I think the theme here, what we were trying to focus, can we translate that to manufacturing in India? Why doesn't that happen? I think the key is not that those technology or innovation is not good. Most of the stuff that you see in the Western world, probably some Indian engineer in India or abroad is doing it. But they can't make that in India for the reasons that we talked about. One, maybe you don't have a large enough market for that right now. And that's one perhaps in some ways an impediment. The second piece that you have is that in terms of the ability to manufacture at the cost structures that you want to do it and at the scale that you want to do it in order to make it viable. That's the reason why you see a lot of private equity funding innovation, innovative business models in India, even small ones. There's a lot of money coming in. So there is recognition, but somewhere it's probably going out. If you have to make that a big manufacturing footprint, a lot of the points that we all talked about, I think has to be encouraged to make manufacturing happen in India.
Thank you, Mr. Ajay. Sir.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Raminder Singh. I come from Hyderabad, looking at a topic, electronics manufacturing. The promoter of Quad Electronics, the famous Akash, or not famous Akash tablet, which was made by us. The good points were discussed here, but there are certain things, there's a lot of passion in the industry to grow electronics. We see there's a less passion in terms of government that, they have talked about it, they have been talking about it, and last 20 years I'm running this electronic manufacturing services as a company, though we were part of Celestica earlier, and they ran away practically seeing the volumes of India. And why this happened, I like to share that with you so that you have an idea that what an industry is looking for and how we should partner together to remove these barriers which are there. See, we talk about labor. Labor is a very small component in the total value addition. That is something which we all know about it. The efficiency of the labor is one of the critical things where we are still struggling. Just now, a gentleman represented engineering background. That is something which we need to improve on. Secondly, the major cost, which I think most of us skip, is on the supply chain. We don't have the ecosystem for the supply chain. We talk about that electronics have to be manufactured, but the ecosystem which is required for making this happen is still missing. There are huge amount of barriers. There's a problem with the freight. The freight costs are higher compared to other countries. Vis-a-vis in China, you need anything, you get straight away. We tried to manufacture mobile phones and we were thrown out. The reason was the cost, because of the cost and the faster time to deliver. See, that is something which we have to really look at, that how we are going to start from scratch in terms of ecosystem, how we are going to develop the ecosystem. Secondly, you look at the TV market, there was a demand, that's how the whole TV started manufacturing here. And then came global volumes and our TV manufacturers went back to China. You took an example of automobile, it's a good example to take, but you look why it happened. It happened because somebody had that passion to make an automobile within India and start, and there was a duty regime that time. There was a barrier that if you import a car, you have to pay higher duties, and that's how the Indian industry grew. But today, if I want to import a complete build unit of a tablet or a modem, there is no duty. There is absolutely zero duty. And how you will be competitive when the ecosystem is sitting there and we are trying to manufacture here? That is something which we have to really look into minutely, that why government is allowing this duty structure where if you import a mobile phone, there is 1.34% duty. Can you believe? And if I manufacture something in India, I have to pay 12.4% duty. So this is a barrier. How you think that this is going to come out? That why government is not taking initiative on bringing this minute details into the table, discuss with the industry, and come forward with a proposal. You need an electronic India gate. If you need to really prosper in electronics, we need an electronic India gate which doesn't allow, I know there are WTO norms and all, but we have to have Indian technology which has to be innovated, which we discussed. Take example of electronic plug. We travel abroad. There's a round plug. You don't find anywhere in the world. You have to go for the square. Adapter, right? Why can't we have a technology which is suited to that kind of a requirement that it only goes in India? Why you have to have a separate technology which you are just importing and selling? That is something which we all have to look into. Then only you can grow this industry. Otherwise, last 20 years, I have been seeing many people came, we made that tablets. Now people are importing that tablets. Same thing, no duty. So what advantage we have? We have to innovate. So we started getting into innovation. But how we are going to compete with the supply chain of China? These are some minute details which we all have to understand very carefully. So my question is, we all talk about it, but when actually it's going to be implemented? How you think that we are going to implement this? That is something which I like to hear.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. I think you have raised some very valid questions which apply to a lot of manufacturers. I'm sorry we don't have anybody from Deity here at the moment. Yeah, but they will be there later during the day, so I'll make sure that you can connect with them and maybe they can address some of them. No, I know, but but it's a serious topic that needs to be addressed, and you are correct in highlighting it.
No, I think the last point I had made was that we need to work, manufacturing industry leaders need to engage seriously with governments, state government as well as central government, that on the fiscal side you do not have a disadvantage. And that, I think, is the part that we have to get our act together.
Yeah,
because it's quite right that you cannot compete if you don't have a level playing field in terms of taxes.
Executive Director of CDOT sitting over here. He has a comment to make on one of the points made. Mr. Shastri.
I'm Shastri. I just want to respond to what someone has pointed out on CDOT technologies. Yes, CDOT has done some innovative technologies in the past, and the type of distribution of the technology to giving it to so many people and competing for the market, etc., was tried out. And after that, why it has declined and what is that, why this has not taken off. So that's what I want to comment on. I think basically CDOT is today working on many futuristic technologies, and we are also aware of what is the changes which have to be brought in to compete with the present day circumstances. If you see the NTP 2012, that is the National Telecom Policy, I think whatever are the issues which have been discussed here, how to really create the type of a ecosystem into this one have been well addressed. Right from the point of creating the innovative products within the country, what type of advantages or what type of incentives have to be given for technology development, and what are the type of disadvantages what are going to be there in the manufacturing as far as the telecom products are concerned are also been addressed. And I think I want to tell you, all of you, which may be coming out when Mr. Malay Srivastava comes and discusses in the other schedule. But basically all these things have been well addressed in the NTP, and there are different sections or different forums have been made so that these ideas or the intentions are converted into actual practical actions. and they are taking the inputs from all the industrial members. And what my advice to all of you is, who are all addressing the telecom manufacturing, is to be part of these, different, policy guide, and then give these inputs. And basically, whatever the points which have been raised have already been well addressed, and the corrective actions have been being taken. The one point which has been well articulated is the preferential market access. Especially for the telecom products, a preferential market access for the products which have been produced in the India has been given for the government, procurements and things like that. The first one is going to be the National Optical Fiber Network. The procurement against that, which is going to be there, almost 100% of that requirements are going to be sourced from the Indian manufacturers. So this is the first step which has been taken by the telecom, this one. And as far as the C-dot technologies are concerned, yes, the C-dot technologies are now, there are 5-6 products which have been come out, and these things which we are trying to push it into the Indian market, and we are having a lot of discussions with all the Indian manufacturers, how they can take the technologies, and they can interact with C-dot so that this can become a sort of reality in the coming years. That's what it is.
Thank you, Mr. Shastri, for offering that explanation and some substantiation for the points. I'm not sure if it answers all your questions, but Mr. Shastri is there and you can catch up with him. Thank you, sir. So, since we are sort of running short of time, so I would like to bring an end to this formal session, but I encourage you, because Mr. Shankar has to leave. So, I would like to thank all our panelists for being here this morning and for sharing your thoughts. Very wonderful talks we had, and I'm sure all of us benefited a lot. I would also like to thank our partners who have made this event possible: T Connectivity, Atero Recycling, our Communications and Manufacturing Association of India, Telecom Equipment Manufacturers Association of India, the Association of Medical Device Industry, Manufacturers Association of Information Technology, the Department of Electronics and Infotech, DETI, and Joint Secretary Dr. Ajay Kumar for their enthusiastic support and help in organizing this conclave. I would also like to thank Mr. S.R. Rao, Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, who was unable to make it this morning, but he wishes the conference all the best, and he will try to make it. Thank you. So thank you, everybody, and please join us for the next session, which will start in 15 minutes. Thank you.